Hello and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the second day of a 12-day 4th grade math review that looks at the entire 4th grade math curriculum. And let's go ahead and get started. Remember, as always, we are reviewing items from the 2017 STAR test from Texas. Today we are looking at rounding and then relating fractions to decimals. So we start with number 7 here. Scott traveled 557 miles to visit his cousin. So that's the only number we're going to get here. What is this number rounded to the nearest 10? So this is very clear. They want us to round it, and they want us to round it to the nearest 10. Notice there's no A, B, C, or D. This is a free response item, which means we had to bubble this answer in. There's no A, B, C, or D to guess from. So we're simply going to round this number, 557, and they say to the nearest 10. So here's my tens place. So it's that 5 that we're going to use as our place that we're rounding to, and we're going to look at the number next to it. We're going to try to figure out what happens with that 7, because really, when you're looking at boundary numbers, what we're looking at is what are the tens that are above and below 557. This is something you did in 3rd grade. So the tens above and below are 550 and 560. So this is going to be your 555, that's your midpoint, and so your 557 is going to be right around here. So then your question is which one is it closer to, 550 or 560? Well, we can see that your 557 is closer to 560. That's because if this digit to the right of the one we're rounding to is either 5 or more, we're going to go up. And if it's 4 or less, it's going to stay the same. And then either way, we are going to take that digit and turn it into a 0. So this 557, this 7 is going to make this go up 1. So now we're going to round it up to 5. 1 plus 5 is 6, and then that becomes a 0. So 557 rounds to 560 to the nearest 10, simply because it's closer to 560 than it is to 550. The reason that this might be tricky is for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's a free response. So if you didn't bubble in 560 correctly, you'd still get the answer incorrect even if you worked it out correctly. But also because this isn't the largest place value. Look at 557. If we wanted to go to the hundredths place, if you weren't paying close attention and rounding to the tens place, you could just round to the largest place, which is what we typically do when we're doing a quick estimation for some type of addition or subtraction problem. We would round like this. We would say, oh, 557. This 5 is going to make that 5 go up 1. So it rounds to 600 in the hundredths place. But we weren't looking for the hundredths place. We were looking for the tens place. So I would be fairly certain that the number 1 incorrect answer on this particular problem was probably 600. They rounded correctly. They just rounded to the wrong spot. But we're not going to the hundreds. We're going to the tens, and your answer is 560. So now we've got 2 problems that we're looking at the relationship between fractions and decimals. So number 1 says Larry has written 6/10 of his book report. And I'm going to just write that out in words here. 6/10, because you say the numerator first, and then you say the denominator, 6/10 of his book report. Which decimal represents the part of the book report that he has written? Once we make this connection in 4th grade, everything opens up. 6/10. Well, let's look at our place value. So let's just start with these 2. So we know that the very first digit is called the ones digit. It's the ones place. We know next we have the tens, we have the hundreds, but we're not going to go too much farther to the left. This decimal comes into place when we have numbers that are less than a whole. And so our very first digit is going to be tenths. That's our first digit after the decimal. The next one is hundredths, and it continues kind of like a mirror, matching what happens on the whole number side. The only difference is each time you have a new place value, make sure to include the THS at the end. Look what I have here, 6/10. Well, here's my 10th spot, so I can just put a 6 right here, and this is 6/10. And all we have is 6/10, which means we don't have any ones, and we don't really need to put a 0 in the tens or the hundredths spot. So my answer is going to be 0.6. And once we make this connection, this is 0.6, but it's also 6/10. Once we see that this equals 6/10, that decimal equals that fraction, then we can start changing between the two really easily. This is incorrect, A, because it is 6 1/10. So this would be 6 1/10 as a mixed number. B is incorrect because it's 6 1/100th. So we would say 6 1, and that 1 is in the second place after the decimal, so it's 100th right over here. And we know C is correct. This would be 6/100ths. So that would be a big difference between C and D, but our answer here is C, 6/10. And our final problem for today is going to be number 32. In science class, Douglas measured the mass of a rock in kilograms. The mass of the rock was 26 kilograms, 0.26 kilograms. Which fraction is equivalent? So we have a 0.26. So let's do the same thing we did last time. Let's go ahead and write our numbers here. So we've got the ones. We've got the tens. We can go more if we need to. Typically, this is going to be all we need, especially when we're dealing with fraction. That's tenths, and that's going to be hundredths. So we have 0.26. I'm just going to write 0.26. Now, when you have two digits after the decimal, you read it like 26, and then you're going to say the name of the final spot. You're going to skip this spot right here, and you're going to say the name of the final spot. So we're going to skip the tenth. We're going to say 26 hundredths. So that's how we write hundredths in a fraction, 26 over 100, and this is the same as 0.26. Those two are equivalent. Once we can go back and forth between the two, that's going to be awesome. So 26 over 10 is not going to work. That's actually going to end up as that's an improper fraction. So it's going to end up as 2 6/10. 2 6/100ths. So this is going to be 2.6. 2 6/100ths is going to be 2.06, because that's your hundredths spot right there. And then 2 1/6 just plain doesn't work, because 1/6 doesn't translate easily into a fraction. It's got a long repeating decimal at the end, so we're just going to say a big no on this. We're going to worry about that when we get up to 6th or 7th grade. So your answer is going to be F. So if you enjoyed this and you want to see what's going on in day 3 of our 12-day 4th grade math review, make sure to get on my website to check out my next post, aarondaffern.com.